Hello everyone. In this session, we are going to learn about getting started with backend using Flask. So let's start with the index. First, we'll have a look at what is a backend. Next, we'll see what the hypertext transfer protocol is. Then we learn about what an API is. After that, we'll have a look on how to install Flask and run a basic Hello World application. Next, we'll understand routes and how you can add information in your routes and access it using Flask. Finally, we'll see how to return an HTML file and a JSON response using Flask. So let's begin with understanding what exactly a backend is. Let's take the restaurant scenario. Over here, let's start with understanding that there is a client, there is a person who comes into the restaurant and they want to order food. So they will ask the waiter, and the waiter will take the request from the client of what dish they want to order. This waiter will take it to the receptionist who will take the order. And let's say there are many chefs. It's a very big restaurant and there are many chefs who are in the kitchen. So this receptionist would decide which chef is currently free and then pass that order on to that chef. The cook, the chef, will take the order and use the refrigerator for ingredients. So they will have a look at the ingredients, cook the food, and they'll send it back to the receptionist. The receptionist will have a look at the table where the clients are sitting. They will ask the waiter to send the food to the client who will get back the food. So, this is the scenario and this is the flow of information in the restaurant scenario. Now, why have we covered the restaurant scenario over here? That is because we are going to connect via analogies the restaurant scene and what happens when a client or a browser requests an API. So if we draw some analogies from our previous example, the client becomes our browser. So the person who came in the restaurant, that's actually the browser. And the browser here does not order food, but it orders some request. Let's say I want to get this website. So the client puts a request, but to whom does it put the request? It wants to send the request to the servers, but there is a layer which will first transform, like it will transfer the entire request to the server. So this acts like the waiter and it's the router. It will take the request from the clients. There can be multiple routers in between. They will take the request and make sure to pass it on to the servers. Before the request is transferred to the servers who process the request, there will be a proxy server. The proxy server will take the request and it will have a look which server is free. Or there can be some servers which are specialized to handle your particular request. So this proxy server will have a look at your request and then transfer it to the particular server who will then process your request. So your request is transferred to this server. This server acts like the chef. So this proxy server acts like the receptionist and this server acts like your chef. To get some data, depending upon your request, it will look at the database where the information is stored. It will get the data from the database, process your request, send it back to the proxy server, which will then send it back via the routers to the client. So this is how the entire network flows when you send a request to a server. So that is what the backend is. The backend compromises of the proxy server, these servers which process your request, and also the backend, the database as well. But the databases are learned separately, and hence we'll just learn about what these servers do using Flask. When they are trying to communicate, when the client is communicating with the server, it needs to follow some protocols. Let's take an example of a restaurant over here. If the restaurant is very big, then they start building some protocols. Every food item is given a unique number. The waiters they note down the food item instead of writing the entire the name of the food item. So the receptionist takes the food item number and passes it on to the chef, who then cooks it and then sends it back. So they start following a protocol to efficiently communicate between each other. Also, everyone on the team, the waiter, the receptionist, the cook, everyone must understand these protocols so that they can communicate efficiently. Similarly, in our network scenario on the internet, there are millions of websites on the internet and all of them are written in many different languages. So to communicate between each other, it's paramount that they have a protocol because this scenario is way larger in scale compared to the scenario of a restaurant. So the protocol need over here is a must to prevent chaos. It's not even about efficiency, it's about that you must have a protocol, otherwise the websites won't work, the internet would crash. So here comes our hypertext transfer protocol, which is the HTTP. So websites, browsers and servers, they communicate by using protocols and HTTP protocol is the most popular one. So let us try to understand what exactly this protocol is. On the databases or the requests you send, the client sends, the request can be categorized on a very broad level in the four main categories, which is they want to create a new data entry, they want to read a data entry, they want to update an existing data entry, or they want to delete an entry. For example, you want to read a website, you want to fetch a website. So that comes inside read. Let's say you want to create a post on Facebook, that comes inside create. Let's say you want to edit your already existing post, that comes inside update. And you want to delete your post, then it comes inside delete. If you think about it, all the kinds of actions that you do on the website can be categorized as either create, read, update, or delete commands. That is why the CRUD abbreviation is very popular. So your requests usually are of the following four types, which is the CRUD types, and correspondingly the HTTP protocols have been created. So for the operation create, we have the protocol post. So how do we send the information that we want to create some data entry? We do that by using the post protocol in HTTP. Then how do we send a read operation? We do that by using the get protocol. If we want to do the update operation, we use the put protocol. And if we want to do the delete operation, we use the del protocol. So corresponding to each task which a user might do on a website, we have a protocol. There are many other protocols as well, but these are the four most important and useful protocols. So now let us understand the differences and uses of how exactly these protocols work. So when you want to send a request to the server, you might also want to send some information in that request. When you want to fetch a data entry, you do not need to require, like you are not required to send a lot of data because you are not creating anything new. You are not sending data to the server. You want to fetch some data from the server. So in the GET protocol, we do not have any body because we do not want to send data to the server. So the GET protocol is only used to fetch data from the server and it does not have any body or payload inside of it. You can still send some limited information in the GET request in the route itself. We'll have a look at how to do that in Flask later on. Then comes the POST request. The POST request is used to create new entry in the DB. As you want to send some data from the client to the server, we need to have a payload or a body to these requests. So the POST request has a body which can send as much data as you want to. These body are broken down into packets which are sent over the routers and are received by the servers. You do not need to worry about that. That comes inside the transportation layer, but you can just remember that you can put any amount of information that you want to inside your post request. Next comes the put request. The put request is used to update existing entry in the database. Because you want to update an entry, you need to send some information from the front end, which is the client, to the back end. So you have the body in the put request as well. So body is allowed. Then comes finally the del request. The del request is used to delete entry in the DB. In the delete request, the body is allowed. For deleting an entry, you just need to send the ID or a unique identifier for that entry that can be sent in the routes just like the GET request. Yet, in the protocols, the del uh, protocol has a body and it is allowed to send a body, but it is not recommended as written in the docs. It can happen that some of the browsers or some of the server codes they start rejecting the body of the del protocol. So usually it is not recommended to send out a body in the del protocols. So the main differences arise between the get and the other requests. In the get request, body is not allowed, while in the other requests, you can send the body. But each request has a different task. Now, one question which arises in most people's mind is, can't we just use a post request to do all the tasks of the get, put, and del request? All the requests return data back from the server to the client. So if you want to fetch some data, you can do that using the post request. You can get back the results of the post request and use it. So you actually do not need the get request. Neither you need the put request because inside the post request itself, you can send the body and then correspondingly update your entries. So just using post, you can implement the get, put, delete functionalities. But you should not do so because the get, post, put, and delete request are recognized by all the developers in the world. That is what a protocol means. It's recognized easily by everyone. So if someone sees that you are creating, or like you are sending a post request, it means that you are trying to create a new entry in the DB. And it's easy for a new person or a developer to understand your code. If you are doing a GET request, it's easy to understand that you want to fetch some data from the server. That is why you should use the correct protocol for your corresponding task. But if you want to, you can, in practice, use only the post request to generate to all of the corresponding CRUD operations, though it is not recommended. Okay, so now that we understand what the CRUD operations are and what the HTTP protocol is, let's have a look at what we mean by an application programming interface. So an application programming interface or an API, let's try to understand what it is by understanding the analogy with the restaurant. So in the restaurant, we have a menu with all the items and each item has a recipe. So we have all the items or dishes in the menu. Corresponding to each item, the chef has a recipe. Okay. So now in our servers, we have a list of possible requests that the client can request. So we have a list that, okay, if you want to fetch the website, you have to create a specific request. If you want to fetch the data of a user, you have to create a specific request. And for each request on our server, we have a set of commands which the server executes. So if the person says that update the password of a user, then the server will take the password, update it, and it will execute a certain sets of commands. All of this compromised together is called the API. So every API has a unique name to identify it just like our dish on the menu. And then every API also has a code which is executed when that API is called, just like the recipe. So you can see over here, we have the instances main API, which has the get API, the post API, and the put API. So whenever you want to get an entry from the instances, you do the get, you call the get API, which will then execute all of the commands. If you want to add some new entry in your instances, then you can do a post request. You do not need to understand what exactly is happening in this code. You just need to understand that corresponding to a single database, you can have the get, post, and put APIs, which will then execute a certain set of commands. So now that we understand what is an API, let's move on to Flask. So now first we'll understand how to install Flask, which is very simple, and then we'll see a Hello World application in Flask. So to install Flask, if you have already installed Python or Anaconda, you can just do pip install Flask, and that's it. It will install Flask for you on your computer. To execute the Hello World code on Flask, first you need to create a file. You can name the file hello.py and put this code inside of it. In this code, we have from Flask import Flask. Then we create an app using the Flask which we have imported. We provide a route to this API. We create a function. We can name this function anything. And then we execute the set of commands in the API. As this is a hello world, this is a very simple program. What we do is in the commands, we return the text hello world. So this API, when it's hit, it just returns the string hello world. And that's it. If you write down this code in your Flask, you have created your first server as well as your first API. Now, how do we run a Flask app? There's a different approach depending upon which operating system you are using. Let's say you are using Linux, then you have to export the Flask app environment variable and set its value to the file name. So let's assume that we stored this server code inside a file named hello.py. Then you put export flask underscore app equal to hello.py. And then after you have exported the environment variable, you can just do flask run, and this will execute your Flask application. If you are using PowerShell on Windows, then to set the environment variable, you have a different command, which is $env colon flask underscore app equal to hello.py. And then you can execute flask run to execute your server. And then if you are using a command prompt on Windows, then you need to use the set function to set the environment variable. So you can use set flask underscore app equal to hello.py and then do flask run. After you do flask run, your server will start, and if you go on the browser and try to access 127.0.0.1 colon 5000, then you will be able to get hello world. So that is how you write a hello world application in Flask. If you want to set the development mode where you make any changes to the code and automatically your server will restart, you need to further add another environment variable inside your console or terminal. On Linux, you can do export flask underscore env equal to development. On PowerShell, similarly, $env colon flask underscore env equal to development. Or on command prompt, you need to do set flask underscore env equal to development, and this will set your Flask in the development mode. Hence, your Flask will automatically restart every time you make some changes to the code and save it. This can come in handy during the development mode. So now that we have created the basic hello world request in Flask, let's understand what routes are. In the restaurant scenario, each dish on the menu has a unique name. for the customer or the client to understand and request a dish. In a server scenario also, each API must have a unique route which allows the client to send requests. So the client should understand which API it wants to access, and for that each API has a unique name or a route. So over here we can specify the name of our route by doing @app.route, and over here if we just provide a slash, it means this is the very base route. If you do not provide anything in your URL, let's say you type only 127.0.0.1 colon 5000, then it will access this API. But let's say you want to access the API, your localhost 127.0.0.1 colon 5000 slash users. Then you can create another function which has app.route slash users and then execute the commands inside that function. So that is how you can create multiple APIs by having different routes for each API. So this is the use of routes. They are used to distinguish the different APIs. During learning about the GET request, I told you that you can pass information in the GET request as well. Though it will be limited, but you can send information in a GET request. Let us see how to do that by passing information via the routes. As you can see over here, let's say you want to pass some information to the server. You want to get the image of a horse. So you want to get a file which is kept on the server, and for that you have a route slash image, and you want to specify the information that you want to get an image which has the name horse.jpg. You can do that by doing @app.route. It begins with slash image, and then you specify that there is a string variable named image underscore name, and you provide the same variable name inside your function. Now what will happen is when you try to access this API, it will come in this route and it will then match horse.jpg and put it inside the variable image underscore name. Then you can use this variable which contains the value horse.jpg to load that image and then return it from this function. That is how you can pass information in your route. You can add multiple slashes to incorporate more and more information inside your route and then execute the corresponding commands. But there is a limit on how much information you can send via your route. It depends upon the HTTP version you are using as well as the servers. So, but in a post body, there is no limit as to the information which you can send. So you can use GET request to send small information, but you can send the POST request to send as much information as you want to. Also, sending information in the route is not safe because the GET request, if you put the information inside the route, it will be accessible to all the routers between the server and your client. The routers require the route to be able to send the information to the correct server. So this becomes public information. But let's say you send some data in the post request body. Then if you are using the HTTPS protocol, S stands for secure, the data inside your body will be encrypted. So nobody in between will be able to crack what your information is there inside the body. So remember, when you want to send sensitive information, use the body of the post request. So now that we have learnt about how routes work in Flask, we can send a HTML file as a response to a request. You can also specify multiple routes to the same function. Over here, we specify app.route slash hello as well as slash hello slash name to the same function, where we are using the render template function provided by Flask to return a hello.html file. This hello.html file has already been generated and it is kept inside the templates directory. So wherever your code is, create a templates folder beside your code and put a hello.html file inside of it. You can use the render template property to provide some arguments like the name to that HTML and then render your HTML code dynamically. As this is an introduction to Flask, we are not getting into exactly how to render your variables, but you can go on the Flask documentation and there you will get very simple examples of how you can render your names or variables which you pass over here inside your template. So using Flask, you can easily return an HTML file for your request. The next and the most important thing which comes when you are using Flask is when you want to return a JSON object. So let's say we have an API which has the route/users. You can use this to get all the users in your database. So we have a function which will get all users in the database. Your database can be a MongoDB or a JSON file in which you have stored the entire information and you get all the users. The users is a list of dictionary with an example like this. So it will have the key name having value user, maybe you can have the age, password hash, and so on inside this dictionary. And there will be many such dictionaries inside a list because we have all users information over here. If you want to send this information to the client, you need to convert this information in a string format because the client only understands some string information or a byte information. So you convert this into a string and then send it as a response to your API. Now, for your client to be able to understand the data that you have sent, you need to convert it into a standard format. JSON is a very popular standard format which can be used to convert and encode your dictionaries and lists and then decode it on your JavaScript code. So you can use the JSONify function provided by Flask. You can from Flask import JSONify and then return your users after converting it into a JSON string. On your client code, you have to convert your JSON back to an array or an object. So this is how using an Flask API, you can send JSON information from the server. That is it for introduction to Flask. This information which you have learned should be good enough to cover the basics of many kinds of servers that you want to create. If this information is enough to start building an application using the Flask server. Thank you.